The Heroes and the Hidden by Kitty Cat on AO3. Episode 13. Chapter 13. The scary thoughts are spreading like a weed. Izuku frowned, looking at the flower on his desk. 4 days. It had taken 4 days for the kids in his class to start giving him flowers of death. 4 days before the spider lily sat on his desk. Its petals curled, like a hand straightening towards the heavens, towards death. Its larger bottom petals curled towards the floor, pulling towards his desk. The green was vibrant against the red and the beige of his desk. The long, multied appearance of the petals assembled the dripping of blood, making Izuku ill. His mom's blood had looked like this, her flesh so red it resembled the petals that now hung low towards his chair. The thin stems were like needles, jabbing up through the bottom of the receptacle, like his talons digging into his mom's skin. Izuku tightened his fist, staring at the flower of death in disappointment that stared back. He hated that it was so beautiful to him, the way it desperately reached towards the sky like his mom had reached for his face, the red and green looking like fireworks in the night sky. He heard her voice calling to him as he stared at the flower, slowly walking towards it. It tied a rope around his chest, pulling him towards it like a moth to a flame. He knew he shouldn't greet the flower, greet the meaning behind it, but it beckoned him. Like a friend lost long ago, the petals reached towards him, towards the past of him that longed for peace, for solace from the pain of living. It looked so beautiful in the vast of his desk, a star in the void of life. He took step after step towards the flower, towards accepting the meaning. The small part of him grew and grew, a Deku to death. These kids were monsters and mold eaters. The adults who ran the society were scum who were weak, so they were pushing down others. People lay dead in the streets, most due to preventable diseases. But here, these children stood, wishing death on him, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The flower was plucked and would slowly die, and Izuku couldn't help but wonder what it felt like. What it would feel like for your soul to be slipping from your body, and the last breath pulled from your chest. Would it feel like drifting away? Or would it be sudden and fast, like a punch from a hero? Where would it take him? He could choose. He could decide his life and his death. Toga stood past him, gripping the flower tightly in her fist, glaring at the people around. She snarled at the children who had gathered to mock him, to laugh at the child who stared at his friend's clenched fist in shock. The petals, dripping red on the floor. Drip, drip, drip. The blood hit the floor hard, making him wince and pulling him from his thoughts. The children around him laughing at his reaction, laughing at the pain that shot through his body with every drip. Things were muddled, except for the droplets hitting the tiles on the classroom. Drip, drip, drip. He could barely see Toga, dropping the flower into a bin, glaring at the kids who snickered, moving closer and closer like moths to a flame, marveling at the child who burned and drowned in tears. Death was so accepted in this world. The strong kill the weak. The wolf eats the lamb. The snakes kill the snakes. The badger kills the lion. Size doesn't matter. Power does. Toga wrapped her arms around Izuku, guiding him from the room. She seemed worried, but he was fine. He has to be fine. He has to be strong. He knows what he's thinking. He meant to think it. He's have to have some control. He can be strong. If he's not, the predators will pounce. They'll kill him and leave him there for the scavengers. Those on the streets, the vultures, hyenas, and piranhas, all hope to feast on his flesh. She takes him to the bathroom, and Shinsou soon follows. Where did she come from? Are they in the women's restroom? He can't be here. Toga sits him on the floor, the cool tiles hitting his skin through the uniform. He clenches his fist as tears start to fall. His hands hurt so much. He can't let his talons out. He might hurt Toga or Shinsou. He can't lose control. He needs to stay here. He can't float away. Izuku, Toga says, her voice distant. He can't hurt them. He hurts everyone who gets too close. He can't hurt her. He can hurt himself. Save them from the pain and give it to himself. He deserves it. He scratches his neck and his wrists, at his ankles and face, anywhere his uniform does not cover. He scratches. Izuku! She tries again, placing her hands on his shoulder. He pulls away, pushing across the floor and scooting away from them. He scratches faster. Maybe he could cut through his flesh and bleed out like his mom. It's a fitting death for a monster. Hitoshi! Toga says through Izuku couldn't hear her. He could barely read her lips. They're fading. He's fading. He should just give up. Izuku. A voice, grades cut into his thoughts, rough and graphic. It's so far away that he could barely register it. Mitoshi's mouth moved in time. She spoke. What? Izuku asked, surprised. Suddenly, it all goes white. A soft white that pulls Izuku in. What was happening? He doesn't care. He's safe. It's warm here. Mitoshi stares at Izuku, trying hard to hold a connection. Her quirk is weak and hard to control from autophonies and after years of letting it sit in disuse. Toga is careful not to approach either individual, watching from the side. Take 10 deep breaths and feel the area around you. Mitoshi mumbles, pushing to keep the hold long enough to give a command. She feels the command take place, making her sigh as she drops the hold, like a rope being severed by a knife. Her tongue hurts from talking, and her throat is sore, making her wince as she swallows. She could feel her tongue rip open cuts, but does not best to swallow the blood before it could ruin the mask. Izuku breathes in and out. 1. One flower sits on his desk the next day, the same as 4. 2. 2 people comfort him in the bathroom. 3. 3 times he wakes up screaming from nightmares of heroes. 4. 4 nights in a row these happen. 5. 5 petals fall from the nearest lily. 6. 6 times he ends up bleeding from quirks. 7. 7 times he is told directly to kill himself. 8. 8 times his lunch is smashed into the floor. 9. 9 times he wants to watch society of monsters burn around him. 10. 10 times he wants to drag his talons deep into his chest and rip out his heart. 10 is the final breath. Izuku snuggles beside Toga, Shinsou close to them on Toga's bed. They had barely eaten in the past few days, and they felt sick. But Izuku was good at sneaking. He knew how not to make a sound. So they sat on Toga's bed, eating rolls Izuku had taken from the large collection. He had taken them one at a time, making sure no one noticed. He had scored a small collection of food besides the mask and Shinsou's drawers. None of them noticed the stateless or sight bisque of mold that grew on them. They were just grateful of the food. They had 1 water bottle between them, filling with the bathroom sink when the older kids weren't looking. They didn't bother them or even walk past their room, clearly grossed out by the villains who inhabited it. Izuku helped feed Toga by pulling her muzzle as far as could go, while she shoved pieces of breath underneath it, along with a straw Shinsou had taken from school. Izuku could tell that Shinsou was struggling to eat or drink anything through a muzzle. There wasn't much Izuku could do, because the bit that stuck to Shinsou's mouth, holding her tongue tightly between the 2 metal pieces, was difficult to remove. They tried every night with whatever they managed to find, with little luck. Toga's was easier to manage, just a simple metal mask over her face, preventing her from biting people according to Shinsou. They had found a method of communication through gestures, writing, and a lot of questions on Izuku's part. He learned that the mask, Naoyasa's muzzle, was much like Toga's, but it was made of a quirk-resistant material that just pulled around the spit, which would come back and hit Nobu's face. Her skin didn't seem to be immune to it, so Shinsou said he had seen acids burned on Nobu's chest and such from drooling on as a baby. Makito's goggles were made of reflective coverings that prevented her from being able to use her quirk when worn. The Hondas had sewn it shut through her hair, so she couldn't get it off without them. Mikio didn't have any quirk preventions, as he didn't need eyesight to activate his. He could just always see someone's health, even through closed eyes, so he was just trusted to not tell people about it. The quirk that he didn't know much about was Toga's. She refused to talk about it, and Shinsou wouldn't break her trust except for the bare facts she had told him. Izuku understood, but was still disappointed he couldn't evaluate their quirks. He didn't know too much about Shinsou's either, since communication was difficult. "Hey, Shinsou." Izuku called through another bite of bread. Shinsou made a sound of acknowledgement as she tried to swallow a drink of water. "I should teach you sign," Izuku said, handing the rest of the bread to Toga, pulling under the muscle to move it forward. Shinsou looked at him confused as she shut the water down. "It's like speaking, but with your hands," Izuku explained, knowing that sign was for speaking to demonstrate. Shinsou tapped her fingers together, pointed at Izuku, and then at Izuku's brain. "Oh, I learned some with my mom because I can't hear very well all the time," he explained, signing the few words he knew. The best way to learn was through watching and imitating. "How come we never knew that?" Toga asked, batting his hand away from her muzzle. "You're just so loud and Shinsou doesn't talk, so I never struggled to hear you." He pointed to his ear as he said, "Here," nodding as they seemed to catch on. "I only know ASL because my mom thought it'd be useful if we ever moved away to America with my dad, and it meant that most people can't understand us when we talk." Shinsou nodded, seemingly on board. Toga bounced happily on the bed, watching Izuku closely. He taught them the basic signs, and then slowly went through the alphabet, pointing to the different letters on his English homework. He was already proficient in English, but the school didn't need to know that. They found a new favorite hobby together, and if they seemed to understand things no one else did, well, it was seen as monsters communicating, and no one cared to pay attention. It almost made Izuku not care about the flowers that kept piling on his desk, which he snuck into his bag to put on the table. They were pretty, and slowly dying. He might as well try to help the flowers, which had done nothing wrong. Just like his friends, they were innocent in this story, dragged down by the monsters that inhibited Izuku's body. The monster that made him dream of his classmates drowning in their own blood as he smiled. Okay, I enjoyed this chapter. I am recording this as of my birthday. It is no longer my birthday when I post this. I think it's gonna be the 5th, so it's not gonna be my birthday. It's gonna be a day after my birthday. If you didn't get to wish me happy birthday on my birthday stream that I did, unless I didn't do it and I was so depressed. I say this as if I'm not planning on doing it in a couple hours. Unless I get really depressed, then I'm not doing it, okay? I am struggling with mental health right now, and it's been a challenge. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's been a challenge. I was low-key debating taking another break, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna record, I'm gonna do what I actually like, and I'm not gonna let my mental health take this away from me. So, here I am, recording. This chapter was really interesting. Again, we had more talk on the social aspect of stuff. Kitty Cat mentioned something when I went on break that I forgot to mention in the last videos that I recorded. They mentioned the fact that this story gets pretty deep in the sense of it could get pretty hard to read and stuff. Kitty Cat, do not worry. I read the shit on a regular, not this specifically, on a regular basis, but that type of trauma type of stuff on a regular basis. And when I meant this shit, I meant this shit as in like these things, not as in this is shit. You get what I mean? I read this type of stuff on a regular basis. I I write this type of stuff on a regular basis. When I'm feeling really sad, guess what I do? I write this type of stuff. Exactly. It is therapeutic. It is nice to see someone else going through that struggle and seeing how they heal and stuff like that. And even not healing, but just seeing it is, it's nice. You know, it's why sometimes you get comforted by art when it has trauma that you have gone through. It's why you feel comforted when you see people in media represented that is kind of like you, with the same traumas, the same upbringings. It is validating. There's the word. That's the word I was looking for. It is validating to see that. So do not worry. I personally love looking at this, especially in fanfiction. I love psychoanalyzing it and seeing how that correlates to you know, how the mind functions and stuff like that. Personally, I love psychology, so no need to worry. I know how to pace myself, and there's actually really not much triggering things that I can't handle in media, and by that I mean as long as you don't make Uraraka a bitch, we're good. And even if you do make Uraraka a bitch, I could power through. I could make it. So there's not really anything that I would say like is a hard no for me. I haven't found it. Well, okay, but I don't think there's gonna be water sports, because I'm like, there is one hard no, and that happens to be water sports. I cannot read that. And non-con, but again, I do not think that's here. And that's less of a it's gonna trigger me and more of a I just don't want to read it. I just don't. Point blank. No. Not triggering. I won't bawl down in the corner and sob. Maybe if it's untagged water sports, I will do that, because like, what the fuck? But I'm pretty sure that's not on here. Like, I'm 100% sure, so we're good. Next chapter is called Make Me Behave Like an Animal. Tsukauchi comes for a visit. I'll see you, oh, okay, that's a quote. But, okay, I know you said that Tsukauchi is not a bad character. I love Tsukauchi, do not get me wrong. But I will diss him. And something tells me he's not gonna realize that Izuku's in a horrible situation, and I'm gonna diss him for it. Heavily. Heavily. Anyways, there's not much to say. I don't have much to say. This is gonna be a short outro. I say this, it's been 4 or 5 minutes. Okay. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.